This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order now. Welcome to the June meeting of the Historic Conservation Commission. I'm Gary Lader, Chair of the HCC, and I would like to introduce the Commission. We have on my left Jeff Long, our Historic Officer and Registered Architect. We have Seth Cornish, licensed real estate broker. I don't believe Tony Silvoy is with us tonight, and I don't see Ken Lausch or Craig Evans, but we have Roger Hudak is there, who's a resident of the district, Mike Simonson, our Chief Building Inspector, and I'm sorry, it's
Charles Patrick, Chaz Patrick.
Chaz Patrick, who's a new commission member, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll read now from our ordinance information. It is the purpose and intent of the City of Bethlehem to promote, enhance, and preserve historic resources and traditional community character for the education, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the public through the preservation, protection, and regulation of buildings and areas of historic interest or importance within the city, which have been determined to be of local, state, or national significance. The way the meeting will unfold is the applicants will be taken in order. After identifying the project address and the presenter, our historic officer will provide a background on the building and any recommendations. At that time, the applicant will present their project and plan. The board will then address the project. We'll give time for public comment if there are those who are interested in giving comment. And we will ultimately create a motion to approve as presented, approve with modifications, table the project with clear recommendations, or deny the project with reasons for the denial and changes or improvements which would result in a positive recommendation. We ask if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak on any of our projects tonight. There is a 3-minute time limit, and the comments are limited to attributes of the building only. The HCC is a recommending board, and the results of our meeting will be presented to City Council, and their vote will be binding. Please do not forget to secure your permit from the permit office on the first floor of City Hall before you begin your project. Above all, I remind everyone to conduct themselves in a civil manner and always use a civil tone. The Commission is here to help you with your project. We are a group of volunteers who are dedicated to historic preservation and restoration of older buildings in Bethlehem and beyond. If any commission members have a conflict of interest with any of the applications on tonight's agenda, please come forth at this time. I don't see anybody who has a conflict. We have a sign-in process normally. I think because the meeting is being recorded, I will just ask that all those who are coming up to present to us in person, please sit at the table over here where there's microphones, and everybody should just announce their names before speaking. And with that, we will go to our first agenda item. Jeffrey, it's all yours.
Excuse me, Gary, it's Seth.
Yes.
I think it's very important that we need to have a brief discussion before our first case, because I believe we need to change the way we are wording our motions. And I wish that we as board members would use this sort of a methodology. So bear with me for just a second.
Sure. Thank you for bringing this up.
I looked this up in Robert because I was dumbfounded that City Council didn't read our minutes, but when I really started thinking about it, I can sort of understand why. So what we need to do, our minutes are very important, but that motion has everything in it, and it needs to. So what I suggest is a way of writing a motion. Jeffrey, you're gonna hate me. I'm sorry. I looked in Robert's Rules of Order. I'm a big fan. And what Robert says that for a motion to be made, the first thing that has to happen is the wherefores. And the wherefores and the whereases are what states why the motion is going to be written the way it is. Whereas the applicant at 123 Main Street came before us for a sign, whereas the commission feels that it is historically appropriate, therefore, I make the motion that the project be approved as presented. So therefore, write in our reasoning for the motion prior to the motion. It's all part of the motion according to Robert. Now we have given city council our reasoning right in the motion. Please, I'd like some discussion if we can do it that way. Yes, Jeffrey.
Is my mic live? Can you hear me, Seth?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I actually have a template given to me by the city clerk, and it includes the whereases. The whereas, however, is simply the proposal put forth. The whereas doesn't include any language concerning the motion. So what you see in my minutes are what appear after the whereases that the city clerk has full control over. I cannot manipulate that. That is given to me as a template I have to follow.
Right.
So the HCC motion on the document that's sent to City Council, I can only start with the actual motion. I don't have any control of what comes before that. I hope that makes sense.
Well, if that's the case, then there's almost no point in us meeting, because though at the last city council meeting, they said, boy, it would be really nice if we could tell them what we wanted in the motion. So this is the mechanism that Robert creates for making this motion that they can then read. If all we're going to do is continue to make motions that say whatever we do, and we don't give city council any reasoning for it, they're going to keep sending projects back to us, or they're going to approve projects that maybe we shouldn't have approved, or that we choose to, that we say are not historically appropriate. And it's just a shame, because it's a matter of communication to me. So
Seth,
how do we communicate properly then?
yeah, Seth, I have a different understanding of what we need to do. And I think you're absolutely right. The communication part is essential here. But, you know, Jeffrey and I did have some conversation earlier with Darlene, and I think what both city council needs from us and the applicants who are coming to us need from us is that if we deny a COA, a certificate of appropriateness, we have to be clear in our motion what the applicant needs to do for a positive outcome. You know, that's what I think I would like for us to focus on, you know,
Gary,
in our coming meetings.
excuse me, I like the idea. Could you give me sort of an example, please?
Okay, all right.
I'm struggling with this to be part of, it has to be part of the motion, or else city council doesn't see it until it's too late.
Absolutely. And there's probably multiple ways to do this too, but you know, let's say an applicant comes before us and they want to do a big glass curtain wall building. The entire building is, you know, all four walls, nothing but continuous glass. And so we say to them, we deny your application because it's not in keeping with our design guidelines. You know, typically for our district, you know, there's more solid wall, windows are of a certain proportion. So if you come back to us with perhaps a division of windows that is more in keeping with that of what's typically found in the historic district, we would then give you a positive approval for your project. So I believe that's the part that you know, needs to be more clear for us.
Okay.
And I think there's definitely more to talk about. You know, maybe we could continue the conversation, later on, I think there's definitely going to be more need for discussion on this. And I have a feeling even tonight, but, I don't want to hold up the rest of the applicants much longer on this. Definitely an important discussion. So if we're all good, I'd like to turn things over to Jeffrey.
Sure, no problem. So do we have a representative for agenda item 1, Cathedral
thank
Church of
you.
the Nativity? So while they're gathering, I'll just describe the building, period, style, and defining features. This structure is a stone church. Thank you, Kelly, for the first slide. With a south-facing gable with a rose window, a steeply pitched slate roof, and a gable transept. The current transept was the original church and dates from 1864, while the current nave was constructed in 1887. The church is Gothic Revival in style. So now, Kelly, if you could switch to the next image, I think it's about halfway up. It's the other building. We're actually talking about 2 different buildings here. I'm sorry, I don't remember the slide number. Yes, thank you. So the adjacent parish hall burned to the ground in 1939, but was rebuilt as the new Sayre Hall in a similar Gothic Revival style in 1940. This structure is a large 3-story stone multi-purpose building with a steeply pitched roof, slate roof, and a cross gable. It has casement windows with carved masonry window and door surrounds, as well as cast masonry sills and lintels. A more recent addition that we will not see pictured here is a new cloister that facilitates handicap accessibility for both buildings. Proposed alterations, it is proposed to install a louver in the upper east wall of Sayre Hall. It's indicated on this slide with the arrow, to provide ventilation air to the central air handling unit, and also then to install another louver in the transom above the double doors of the basement at the Cathedral Church, also to provide a fresh air intake for the mechanical system of the sanctuary. And it's okay, we'll go to that slide later. So the citations I use for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior Standards number 9 concerning new additions, exterior alterations, etc., stating they will not destroy the historic materials, features, and relationships that characterize the historic property. Secretary of Interior Standards number 10, stating that new additions or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the original historical property will not be unimpaired. And then finally, the ordinance that Mr. Lader read at the beginning of tonight's meeting. My evaluation, the effects on the district and recommendations. The certificate of appropriateness application indicates the intent to install a 32-inch high by 18-inch wide louver at the upper floor level in the east wall of Sayre Hall. So that's what we see again located in this photograph, and there's a measure drawing we'll switch to in a moment. And then also to install a 14-inch high by 56-inch wide louver within the lower portion of an existing transom above double doors in the Cathedral Church basement. We'll get to that in a moment. I'm going to keep the order in which they were presented in the application. In my opinion, both proposals are inappropriate as currently presented, mainly because they violate the conditions of Secretary of Interior Standards number 9, as well as 10, which require new additions to be easily reversible without resulting in damage to the historical building fabric of the contributing structures. In my opinion, an appropriate alternative will stay here for the louver in the Sayre Hall. Kelly, if you could switch then to the architectural drawing. So here we see a drawing of that same location. The arrow points to an opening that does not exist. That is the proposed suggestion. If you notice, that's within the existing stone wall where there is no opening currently. I would request the applicant explore possibility of locating the louver around the corner And you can see we have convenient in this drawing, the north elevation, there's a window set around the corner on that same level. And either up or down, Kelly, is actual floor plan where we see the mechanical room. So this is the mechanical room. The yellow highlights the ductwork. I'm not sure if they're existing or new. The red indicates the proposed location of the vent. And I'm suggesting that they could explore the window that's around the corner. Can't tell if the window is numbered, but there's a window opening on the other side of the mechanical. Should HCC approve a motion in support of the louver at the location the applicant proposes, then in my opinion, that needs to change from the way it's currently indicated. So Kelly, I'm sorry, if you could go back then to the previous drawing. If you see here, the opening might be ideal for the mechanical room inside, but it's not ideal for the facade. So if HCC does accept a possible new opening, then that opening would need to be centered in the window openings below. Right now it's maybe flush left, I'm not quite sure. And from the inside it'll be really difficult, but it'll also need to be aligned with the window to the left, so the very large window. It'll need to have a sill and a lintel, and it'll have to be really carefully integrated into that stone structure. That's my suggestion of perhaps an alternative is around the corner, because I think the proposal, even when you align everything I'm talking about, can be quite a challenge for even a skilled mason. Because it would include, other details, etc. So that's the one part. Then the other is the louver for the transom above the door in the church itself. So here we see an illustration, or excuse me, a photograph of that, the double doors with the transom above. And then in the photograph, and that was much appreciated, you can see just the tip of that Gothic arch peeking above the ground plane. So there's a retaining wall that allows access to these double doors. So I agree it's not very visible from the street. That's less my concern. The concern again is the Secretary of Interior Standards 9 and 10, which state that you shouldn't do something that cannot be reversed. So the current proposal is to manipulate the existing transom, take out a portion of the transom, change that out for louvers. According to the Secretary of Standards, that's not reversible. So my suggestion would be to actually remove the entire transom. That would need to be salvaged in case a future generation wants to install it back and reverse the proposal. And I would just make the entire transom then a louver. I'm sure that's oversized for what you need on the inside, but that can be masked in such a way that you only take advantage of the louver portion that you need. So in my opinion, both of those approaches adhere to the Secretary of Interior standards for the reversibility, so to speak, and would be considered appropriate within the district.
Jeffrey, I'm sorry, could you both give me your names?
Sure. I'm Richard Sauce. I'm the senior warden of Nativity Cathedral.
And I'm Lee Snyder, a parishioner and an engineer.
Thank you both for joining us tonight.
I'm sorry, could I ask Mr. Saul, how do you spell your last name?
S-A-U-S-E.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
Any thoughts or comments on what Jeffrey just said or is recommending?
Well, as far as the transom, I have no problem with making that a full louver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. As far as the Sarah Hall, to put the louvers in a window, the window sill is flush with the floor, and directly above the window are 3 electrical panels that, well, there's a starter, a disconnect, and a control panel that would have to be relocated. So it becomes And the ductwork really has to be snaked around. So that becomes more costly than going through the east wall. Or let's say at least the same cost. Your suggestion, if we wanted to stay with the east wall, is to mimic the stone lintel and stone framework of the adjacent windows?
I don't think it requires a full surround. It's just a small opening, but if you notice, some of the other windows have a sill and a lintel.
Okay.
The windows below, you can see they have a sill and a window.
Okay, so if we would match that, and are you saying that the top of the louver would have to match the header of the adjacent 3 windows, or does it have to match the sill of the upper windows?
Well, it's indicated as needing to be high, so my assumption is you want it as high as possible.
Correct.
So yeah, the opening would need to align with the adjacent opening, and it would also need to be centered with the windows that are below it. So I can't read window numbers, but the window.
So the 3 windows, you'd want it in
Yes.
the middle.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And if you notice, then the next, Kelly, if you could scroll a little bit more, even the lower set of windows are aligned as well.
So the 21, the circle, you'd want it lined up with
Yes,
the middle.
center to center,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
That's my suggestion. They get to discuss, yeah.
The only thing would be the back of the air handler. I'd want to make sure that I can conform to moving it over to 21.
What is the material that the louver is going to be made out of? Is it like a pre-finished paint?
Well, right now there's a photo,
Okay.
there's a photo of the actual louver.
Okay.
And it's aluminum, but I will take that to a body shop and have it painted whatever color you people propose. Because right now there's a louver in the back wall that's like an anodized brown finish. We can go with that color, but if you're saying you want a different color, I have no problem, because we're going to paint it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what color.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think it should just blend in and not really call much attention to it, right? So, you know, so what the thing is, when you say, yeah, I want it to be stone, to me, it's probably just going to be a grayish off-white, and I think probably everyone agrees you just want it to fade into the background and not call much attention to it, right?
Now, how do we, I have color samples, but unfortunately I didn't bring color samples. Do I submit them to you people to pick the color? Or?
Yeah, typically what we'll do is we'll have Jeffrey stop out there and, perhaps meet with you, Richard, right? I guess you'd be the contact, or both of you.
Either one.
I think even in terms of a lintel or surround, to me, the ideal thing is a lintel that fits in with the existing size of the stonework. And, however you want to do that. Again, I think I would just try and do things in a minimal way.
Okay, let me ask you, if we find out we actually get hard bids on both options, one in the window and one in the back wall, and the one in a window actually is less expensive, can we go with that option?
Oh, it's an interesting question. So, Jeffrey, I'm just trying to understand your recommendation a little bit better. Your recommendation would be to install the louver in the existing window opening around the corner.
I doubt seriously the louver they have depicted here in the photograph would fit that. So I'm
Right.
assuming that it would have to be a different louver. And I can't do calculations to know how much of
Sure.
that,
Oh, understood.
window would require manipulation.
That louver will fit in the window or in the wall. Okay.
Yeah, it's a funny situation. I mean, my gut reaction is that it would be a lot more obvious and detract more from the historical quality of this beautiful stone structure if it was, replacing a window pane. I understand where you're coming from on this too, Jeffrey. So anyway, with that, I'd like to hear from other commission members.
Hi, Lee. I just, one quick question too, before I get started is, below picture 115 or window 115 it says grill, is that already existing?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if that was being added as well. Okay. Yeah, I think if you could get that louver centered over window 21, and with the same lintel, I think that would be inadequate. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but to approve that and then approve two options, either that option or the window option, almost give them a choice, because once they put this out for bid, we're really not going to know what, I would assume.
Yeah.
Cutting through this stone and adding lintels and stuff is probably going to be a little bit more expensive than putting in the wood. It's just, can they get it in the window?
Right.
Correct.
It really comes down to that.
Okay. It's a good comment. Any other commission members wish to comment on this? If we don't have any other commission members who wish to comment, is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this? If not, I'd like to make a motion for 321 Wyandotte Street, the Cathedral Church of the Nativity, that for the proposed louver at location number 1, that is at the second floor. We allow the church an option for 2 bids, one being the original proposed location in stonework with the louver being centered over the windows above. Our historic officer will confirm paint color selection with the church in order to find something that helps it blend in with the stonework. There will be a cast stone lintel to provide for proper installation. The second option would be that the louver could be located in the existing window around the corner. The second location for the second louver at the basement level, our motion is to, or my motion is to take into storage the existing transom, and the new louver would fill the opening of the entire existing transom. Any seconds on my motion?
I'll second that.
Right, thank you. We will put it to vote. Seth Cornish,
Aye.
thank you. Roger Hudak,
Aye.
I vote aye. And Mike Simonson
Aye.
and Chaz.
Aye.
All right, thank you. The motion carries, and thank you.
Thank you. Lee, you could bring those samples, those color samples when you want. If you want to bring them to the code office, we can get them to Jeff if that's the easiest way for you to get them.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have our next application here? Is the second one 712 East 4th?
Yes.
Okay, if you could please come up front, sir. Yeah. And please announce your name.
Sammy Robbie.
Okay, thank you, Sammy.
Thank you.
Gary, if I may, I believe we've gained Kenneth Lausch. So for the
Oh,
next-
great. Okay,
So for the next one, just be sure to include him with the motion.
okay. All right, sorry about
That's
that.
okay, I didn't see him either, I just noticed.
Okay. That's what's tricky about doing things this way.
Checking for more just in case. Seven one two East 4th Street, the building description, period, style, and defining features. There was no image of the building as required for the application, so Kelly's just pulling up from Google Earth or Google Maps. Yeah, thank you. So this structure is the far right unit. So you can see almost all 6 of them. We're talking about the far right one here, of a detached 3-story, 6-unit mixed-use building. Each unit includes a storefront entrance door and a shop window at the street level, with either a bow window or 2 bays of windows at the upper residential floor level. So they kind of alternate across the whole building. The upper level windows are 1/1 double hung sash, and select windows serve as emergency egress, leading to exterior fire escapes. The overall brick masonry structure with simplified upper cornice, unadorned parapet, and flat roof dates from circa 1900. The street level exterior facade has been significantly manipulated over time and has lost its original architectural character. This specific facade and a couple of them adjacent to it received T111 rough sawn vertical plywood sheathing sometime during the late 20th century and is currently painted light gray in color. There is a projecting pent roof sheathed with asphalt shingles, a new shop window, and a new storefront entrance door that were installed in 2019. So admittedly, we are limited by Google Earth. It is slightly different. The shop window does exist. It shows a plywood in this image. It has been installed subsequent. And per our request, previously there are now handrails at the various entrance stoops leading up to each of these units. It is proposed to add a vinyl decal on the front window. For my recommendations, I referenced Secretary of Interior Standards number 9. I referenced that in the previous agenda item, so I'm not going to repeat that. The Bethlehem Ordinance that Mr. Lader cited at the beginning of tonight's meeting, as well as the HCC guidelines for signage and awnings. My evaluation, I'll do that, and then the applicant can introduce himself and move forward. So Kelly, now if we could switch to the application, please. Thank you. The Certificate of Appropriateness application indicates the intent to install a vinyl decal lettering on the existing shop window for a new commercial tenant. Based on the proportions of the provided drawings, this wasn't really to scale. I just had to kind of map it out proportionally based on what you see here. The window itself measures 60 inches high by 84 inches wide. The signage proposal includes one vinyl decal measuring approximately 25 inches high by 15 inches wide as a stylized dollar sign. So again, they're not individually dimensioned, so I had to just use proportion. So kind of that graphic dollar sign measures approximately 25 inches tall by 15 inches wide. It is dark green in color with an outline in orange color. That is followed by what I'm assuming is the company logo, $, up, measuring approximately 12 inches high by 60 inches wide. And they involve a combination of upper and lowercase, serif, italic lettering in dark green color with an outline in orange. The subsequent 3 lines of text identify what I assume are products for purchase within the store. Each of those lines, again, just kind of mapping it out, measure approximately 3 inches high, and they include such words as lottery-cigarette-tobacco, followed by home and cleaning supply, followed by cold drink. All 3 lines include all uppercase, sans serif lettering in a dark green color. Vinyl decal lettering is appropriate, is not appropriate as currently presented. The proposed dollar sign, it might sneak by with the zoning code, but just for general purposes of a window of this size and nature, that dollar sign is just, it's much too large for a shop window. In my opinion, unless it's part of the company logo, the dollar sign should probably be omitted. If the slogan $$up is the company logo, then we don't have any control over the logo. We are required to accept that. However, guidelines discourage lettering with any kind of outline. Guidelines typically say lettering should be one solid color. In our experience, dark lettering actually is not successful in the district. People walking past it or driving past it cannot really differentiate dark lettering from a dark window. So rarely, unless it's really part of a logo that must stay that way, rarely do we green light colored lettering for the benefit of the applicant, just so they can make sure that it works. In my opinion, more appropriate signage would remove the dollar sign, and then I would move up the logo, the dollar and up, to perhaps the upper third, so that when people do walk by, they can also see inside. Right now, with all of this, they really can't, see inside the store. Guidelines also encourage a pinstripe detail around any kind of signage, so the dollar and up would be surrounded by a pinstripe. The design guidelines for signage do not really address texts that are beyond the company logo. So the other, the lists, I'll call them, of products isn't really considered signage for our purposes. It doesn't mean we've never seen anything like this before, and we have made recommendations, but it doesn't really, we don't have much guidance on those. If the HCC does allow these texts, I would at least encourage the applicant to change some of the singulars to plurals. So cigarettes instead of cigarette, home and cleaning supplies instead of supply, and cold drinks perhaps. I would definitely want to make them smaller, maybe just one line across the whole bottom. That way that could even be changed out if you ever, change your inventory or anything. And again, to make them read, probably all the lettering should be like a warm white or an ivory. That'll really pop from that window, and people will be able to see that. I just don't know about your company logo. We can't change your logo, so that I think that all deserves some discussion. And the church next door that appeared in the Google Earth showed just a basic sign. They've subsequently replaced their sign, but they didn't come in front of HCC. It's there. I just wanted to call attention. Their lettering is on the exterior of the window, and we do not approve exterior installation of window signage. So I just wanted to clarify for the applicant, even though that's there, we did not approve that.
Which one, I'm sorry?
The church that would be your neighbor, so
Okay.
that one, that was not approved. So I wanted to make sure you realize your lettering will need to be on the inside of the glass, not on the outside of the glass.
Oh, the inside.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, good. So
So I was afraid if you saw that, you might think, oh, what is he saying? But they did not go through the proper channels yet.
Got you. So the letters has to be inside the window. not
According to
outside.
the guidelines, again, they can discuss
Okay.
options, but
Okay.
my job is to reference all the guidelines, and then they tell us the ones they
I
agree
understand.
with or change. So yeah. So that was the conclusion of my assessment.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey.
Sure.
Sammy, can you, well, first of all, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Can you just clarify the 84 inches by 60 inches, is that the size of both the sign and the window it's going in?
No, the 84 is just the size of the window.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
The letters or all that, just like a draft. Okay. And I appreciate correct about the cold drinks pro, which is that can be changed. Like,
Okay,
we just want to make it as a draft. And the way the sign looks big, like $1, it's not gonna be that big because the reason we just made it as a draft. So
okay,
we can put it because I do want people to, when they're walking by,
Mhm.
to see the inside because I don't want to cover the whole window with
Yeah.
the signage. And even the items I'm gonna carry is gonna be more than that, but I don't want to put everything on the window because that way we make it like solid
Mhm.
letters. So I just put few items and then I'm
Okay.
gonna say like, and that back says like, and more. The reason for the colors is because I used the green, is because, you know, for money wise, for dollar, actually I use the green for that. And it could be light green and gold, like mixed together if possible. If not, I'm very flexible with the color. But if the dollar sign is an issue, I don't mind taking that dollar sign out as well. I mean, I'm okay with that.
I think Jeffrey does have a good point that, you know, usually when you tend to use a darker color for the vinyl, it will be harder to read just because, you know, I mean, take a look at some of the other shops around you and,
Yes.
you know, you'll see because, you know, generally everything inside makes the glass look dark. So, you know, the brighter the color of the vinyl, the clearer it will and more easy.
So what color do you recommend then?
Oh, well, you know, I think what Jeffrey said is usually what we recommend, and you know, it's kind of like an off-white or a ivory color, if that's okay with you.
Okay, just the reason I was saying, is that color is an issue for to get approved? Because if it's an issue, I don't mind changing it. I'm flexible. I like that color with the light,
Okay.
with the bright, like the gold. But if it's an issue for me to approve it, I'm flexible. I don't mind changing it to like if I can.
Yeah, well, and again, you know, we're here to guide you with your project, and you know, just speaking from experience, you know, like Jeffrey said, the darker might make it a little more difficult to read, but you know, ultimately it's your sign and your business and your identity.
Okay, so you give me like an advice or option, but okay,
That's right.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
I will take it into consideration, not a problem.
Mhm.
And like I said, the dollar's gonna come off. I have no problem.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Make
ask you. Sammy, is the dollar sign part of your logo, or did you just add that in?
I just added that in just to attract, but
Okay.
you know, it's not really, this is like a private, you know,
Right.
my first business opening.
The dollar and up is the name of the store.
The name of the store,
Okay.
the dollar up name. So like I said, everything underneath, which is gonna be cigarettes and cold drinks, and that's gonna be done, you know,
Yeah.
professionally with someone.
Okay.
But you know, it's not gonna be everything I'm gonna put because I'm gonna have more stuff, so I'm not gonna add everything to it.
Let me ask you this question and follow up then. If you're gonna remove the dollar sign, are you gonna what would that increase the size of the letters you would want in the window?
It's just something, it's not gonna increase it too much. I might like keep the dollar sign or make it smaller, but I just wanna make sure that people can see it. So this dollar is gonna hold everything. I'm not gonna put the dollar sign because I'm gonna be sitting inside the window behind it.
Right.
That's where is the register area gonna be for myself. So I really wanna see the traffic coming in and
Right.
out for safety, for everything else.
Would you rearrange the dollar and up to maybe the middle and then move the wording down towards the bottom typically to open the window up? I'm just asking.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Would you move the dollar and up, the verbiage up, if you remove the dollar sign and maybe the
Yes, I mean, I can make
Step
it,
down?
I can move the dollar up, I mean, take it out, move the dollar up a little bit more in the top
Okay.
and have, like you said, that to be lined up like
Right,
one
on the
line.
bo-
I
okay.
don't mind doing that.
Would anyone else from the commission like to ask Sammy any questions about this proposal? Hi, Ken. Didn't see you. Hey, Gary. Sammy, I think the only other thing to point out is, you know, typically we ask for a pinstripe border around our signage, whether it's in glass or whether it's a hanging sign.
What is it? I'm sorry?
It's a pinstripe border.
Pinstripe border, like,
Right, that's inset.
Okay.
And, you know, that's something that is part of our design guidelines. So,
Okay. Pinstripe border, okay.
right. Mhm.
Now, what about from the letter to when from outside the window or inside the window?
Well,
You mentioned
yeah, so all the vinyl should be interior and,
interior, okay,
right.
that's not a problem. The only thing I'm worried that if I'm inside because the glass is so thick,
Mhm.
not might people see it from you know, from inside just because of the thickness of the glass based on the picture.
Yeah, I don't really think it will be an issue for
Okay.
you, to tell you the truth.
No
And,
problem.
you know, just from my own personal experience, I think you'll be happier with it that way too, because the outside gets dirty and every time you try and clean it, it will make your
Correct.
decals
I appreciate
dirty
that.
too.
Yeah, you know what?
Yep.
That's very true.
Yeah,
Thank you.
personal experience.
No, I appreciate it.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
And the lighter color on the inside will stand out more than the darker color. will
Okay,
on
like
the inside.
white, some
Ivory,
ivory,
along
something
those
like that.
lines,
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like, okay.
Thank you.
Yes. But before I do that, I think what my motion is going to include is a final design of the sign to be brought back for review.
Mhm.
So I don't even know how much of this verbiage we want to approve. I'm just going to say I'll make a motion for a Windows vinyl sticker window sign at 712 East 4th Street to include the company name and the limited number of product available. No logo because it's not part of the company logo, and surrounded with a pinstripe. The lettering of the sign, the vinyl lettering should be a white or an ivory, and it should be the lettering should be on the inside of the window.
Did you ask for the pinstripe order?
Yes.
Um,
Mike, didn't you say you were going to ask to see the design?
Yes, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything in there in the description. But yes, the design of the new logo design, once you get it, you have to be brought back to the office. You do not have to reappear in front of the board. You just have to bring it in so we can give you the stamp of approval and say that it's
Oh,
okay.
so like rearrange.
Yeah, when you rearranged it with the pinstripe and the logos and the words and stuff, you have to bring a copy of that back in.
Okay,
We'll approve it, but you don't have to come back to the board.
okay, come back to.
Yes, code
I'm
enforcement.
sorry, what do you mean by the pinstripe? Like the border?
Yeah, so like,
I apologize. It's my
no,
first.
no
It's
problem.
okay. It's usually something that's maybe about a quarter of an inch thick line.
So it'd be like inset off the window, just a pinstripe right around,
Oh, okay, like a frame,
almost
Right.
like a frame.
like a
yeah.
frame with the same color of the letters.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, no problem. And you
Uh,
said you need to limit the wording, like cigarettes and stuff like that? Like you need to limit how many words I can put?
Well, I don't want you to put your whole product list on.
No,
there.
I'm not going to that.
Yeah,
No, no,
so
no.
if you're gonna put a couple of words and you want to put them across the bottom, that's fine. It's
Yeah.
just-
Do we have a second on this motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chaz. The only question I have is our zoning has a percentage limit on how much of the glass can be filled up. Is that right?
That is
So,
correct.
okay, so at what point is it reviewed?
When he brings it back, since this isn't the final
Very-
design, when he brings it back, we'll run this through planning and zoning to
Okay.
make sure it meets the cover requirements before we
Mhm.
submit it to Jeff and you for final review.
All right, great. All right, so with that, I will take a roll and Seth, all those in favor? Seth
Don't we need
Cornish?
a second?
Yeah, we have a second. We have a second from Chaz.
Very good. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
Aye.
I vote aye. Is Craig Evans here? Yeah, I thought I saw his name. Okay. Roger Hudak?
Aye.
Mike Simonson?
Aye.
Chaz?
Aye.
Patrick, thank you. Okay, so the motion carries. And thank you, Sammy, and you're clear on your direction.
Yes,
Okay,
no problem. Just bring it to the office.
Yep. Bring your-
They know about it, right?
Yep, they'll know about it. Bring your redesign and just give it, this is for Mike, and then
Okay. Thank you so
And
much.
just to confirm for minutes, you spell your name S-A-M-I?
Yes, sir.
right? And your last name R-A-B-I-H?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
you too. I think our next agenda item is 127, 125 West 4th. Is that right, Jeffrey?
Correct.
Right. Okay, good. Our representative is here. Nice to see you again.
How are you?
Pretty good. And please announce your name.
It's Larissa Woods.
Larissa. Okay.
So the building description, period, style, and defining features. This structure is a one-story brick masonry detached building with a flat roof behind a stepped parapet. The building dates from circa 1925 and was most likely associated with the emerging automobile industry at that time, probably either a car dealership or a mechanical shop, as evidenced by similar structures throughout Bethlehem. The building originally had large glass storefronts. However, the facade has been significantly manipulated over time and has lost its original architectural character. The leaded glass or glass block transoms above the lost storefronts are currently covered over with plywood. We see that here in the cover picture. The shop windows in simple metal frames date from the mid to 20th century and are located on either side of the front entrances. HCC recently approved the applicant's request to demolish the inappropriate plywood sheathing, the pent roof, and the metal siding that went across the front facade to reveal earlier facade, or I'd probably say plural, earlier facades to beneath. And we just got a text in the chat that I think Craig Evans was trying to join us, and I think also voted in favor of the last applications.
Okay.
So give me just a moment to capture that in my minutes, and I'll be right back. All right, thank you, Craig, and thanks for your patience. The proposed alterations, this is a continuation discussion of the HCC meeting on April 19th of 2021 that allowed the applicant to move forward, to remove the facade to reveal original materials, original kind of in quotation marks. The applicant proposes to install window panels, repair the brick in windows, and install exterior lighting. That was on the agenda. There was not a real a narrative with this, so I'm basing what I'm getting ready to say on the provided photographs, etc. The citations I used for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior Standards #1 concerning new uses for existing buildings, #2 concerning the historic character of a property to be retained and preserved, #5 concerning distinctive materials, features, and finishes, #6 concerning deteriorated features, #7 if the applicant does some kind of facade treatments, it has to do with chemical or physical treatments of the facade. #9 we heard in agenda item #1 and 2, as well as #10 in both the previous agenda items. The Bethlehem ordinance that Mr. Lader read at the beginning of the meeting, as well as the guidelines for signage and awnings that I quoted in the previous application. So my evaluation and recommendations. The application indicates the intent to build upon the original proposal to reconfigure what is currently a 2-unit commercial structure into 2 rear dwelling units and 2 front commercial units. Approved demolition of the inappropriate facade elements seems complete. However, the applicant, I would still request some clarification about their intent of what to do with the masonry facade now that it has been revealed. In my recent inspection, I noticed the wood siding and the metal siding is gone, but the entire facade is riddled with fasteners and remnants of fasteners that were associated with those facades. And that's not your fault. That's just the nature of what they were. But of course, that means the facade, both in the mortar joints as well as in the face of the brick, there's just a lot of detritus and stuff going on that I don't think anyone would want, down the road. And maybe you've also started to address some of those, pulling those out, etc. Although discouraged within relevant design guidelines, I'm suggesting the applicant might consider painting the entire facade. Rarely do we suggest a brick masonry facade being painted, especially one that's not yet painted. You can kind of see in this photograph, but when you get close, there's just all kind of brick stuff going on here. some of it more original than not. Some of it's still pretty early. I think it did transition from glass storefronts pretty early. I cannot guarantee that the recess is even from that period. That could have come even later. So just a lot of different things going on that might be something both HCC would consider suggesting, the applicant might consider. That would at least make what now is a hodgepodge of different things more uniform, and would kind of hide all the variations in brick sizes and joints and colors and things. The original proposal to repair the transoms and to replace the missing glazing in the transoms, I stated previously, is appropriate. Currently, when you walk past it, you'll see this, where the transoms are, it's all covered in plywood, and rightfully so, not only to protect them, but when you scroll through the photographs, so if Kelly, if you can find a couple of the details, you'll see when they did remove the pent roof, they probably didn't find a lot of the transoms at that point. Some of them look like they're completely missing. In the previous photograph, it looks like there might be some remnants of what could have been leaded or block glass, but a lot of those are missing as well. And they probably just quickly boarded those up because, you know, you wouldn't want birds and wind and whatever else to come through. So I don't blame them for doing that. So there is a detail, Kelly, of a glass sample a little bit further on. It's just, this is not labeled, so my assumption is this is the proposal of what they want to do in the transom. I just, because it's covered, I don't know if this is a true match, or if this is an alternative, you know, to what's there, or a close match. So when we get to the discussion, we can talk about that too. I couldn't get to it when I was there. The application makes no mention of the entrance doors. So Kelly, if we could go back to that, the first couple of images that show the whole facade. Just as a reminder, until the wood and metal sheathing was removed, these were interior doors. So there were other doors between these and the facade. It was a flush facade. So what was interior is now exterior. I just don't know if they will last. I don't know if they meet code. Admittedly, they're under protection because they're recessed. So I'm not saying that they're going to fall apart immediately. I just don't know. It wasn't clear to me if there's any plans to deal with those doors, and if so, what the plans are. And then now that the front has been removed and you can see the entire recess, you also see there are actually windows on either side of that recess as well. And I don't think we've ever really talked about, you know, what's going on there, the plans. The previous application also mentioned the large shop windows, potentially replacing, et cetera, and I don't see any call out of those. So during the discussion, I'd like to hear, you know, the plans for those big windows as well. I had mentioned the potential of reestablishing the glass storefronts, but as you can see, that would be a huge undertaking and probably something the applicant is not in the position. I don't want to speak for her, but I'm assuming because the original proposal was to deal with the shop windows and not reestablishing the whole glass front, I'm assuming that's probably out of her current scope. There is one other detail. You can see the ceiling of the recess. There's no mention of what's going to happen there. Again, that was something that was on the inside previously. I don't know how well it will survive. Kelly, I'm sorry, I don't remember which slide that was, but there's, I think, a vertical detail of the center portion, and it might give a better indication of the underside of that recess. There you can kind of see it in the right of that image. There's a much better one. So you see some kind of an infill there. Just curious what's planned for that area. There looks like also to be a light fixture connection there.
That's vinyl.
Vinyl, okay. And then finally, the current application, or the series of pictures, also includes depictions of gooseneck light fixtures. So we can, I think these are all toward the end. So these are not at the site. I think they're inspiration photos. There is a Craftsman-inspired metal outdoor wall sconce. That's the wall sconce. And then backtrack a couple, there's a retractable awning detail. But the locations for all of those, I couldn't find anywhere on here, so that'll definitely require some clarification from the applicant. I do want to say gooseneck fixtures have previously been determined as appropriate within the district. It's just we always make sure that because they're new to the building, that there's no visible cables or conduits, junction boxes, et cetera. All those would have to take place inside. We also limit the light temperature if these are LEDs. LEDs can go from very warm white to very bright white. And in the historic district, we limit that to 3000 Kelvin. Those are readily available bulbs. They're not overly expensive or anything. They're just not the blue-white lamps. They're the warmer kind of orangey one. It'll say on the package 3000 Kelvin. The guidelines don't mention outdoor lighting fixtures, so I don't have a lot to go on with the one wall sconce that she included in there. And it was difficult from these drawings to know really where the sconce was going. I think that's more perhaps of just a taste issue, so we can discuss that as well. With awnings, we have approved awnings in the past. They should be canvas. The best one is Sunbrella because of the limitations on fading, etc. So no metallic or no artificial kind of canvases, vinyls or anything like that. It would need to be a true canvas, and those are weatherproof. And it would need to be over a metal frame, and it looked like from the detail it had closed ends, and we don't allow the ends to be closed. It would need to be open on the ends. But again, it might be dictated where you envision this. It's hard to know exactly where these are going.
It was from the meeting from before, so I'm going off the meeting from before.
Oh, that's
the back.
okay.
So I'll go
Oh,
over
on the
that.
back,
I'll
okay.
go over it.
Yeah, I was going to conclude. Then the previous application included a photograph of the rear, and said something about an awning, but this time we don't have anything from the rear. So in case this was for the rear, I thought we'd need to discuss kind of where these are going and the intent for those. It's not just a service alley. It is a true street back there, Rink Street, and it's visible public right away. So that's why it triggers a review of the rear facade as well. It does sit back from the street. There are several parking spots back there. It doesn't terminate right at the right of way on Rink Street, but it's still quite visible from Rink Street. So that was the conclusion of my assessment.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey.
Sure.
Well, Larissa, quite a lot of feedback, and maybe you could fill us in a little bit more on the current plans and you know, what you intend to do with the glass on the transoms and light fixtures and awnings, and what you'd like to do with the brick.
Well, let's start off with the glass. So the windows, my goal in the beginning when we first met, I wanted to restore the windows that were there, but they seemed really damaged when we got into that, when we took everything off.
Okay.
So I did get a hold of Bethlehem Glassworks, and I did the measurements. There is an architect picture on page,
I think I see
Page
on page
13.
13, yeah.
I did submit that to him, and I gave him the measurements, and what I did find out is, for example, like the two front main glass panes that were there, they are structured into two panes. So I would just have to restructure that into two wooden frames. There isn't metal there. There is a structure beam that goes all the way across the actual building itself. So that's actually holding up everything from 125 and 127. So actually what he told me to do is just frame out an actual window measurement for the new window panes to go in. I did bring a sample of the window that I did pick out.
Okay.
This is it right here.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Is that the one you were holding in your hand?
Yes. So it wouldn't be in block form, like it was, it would be,
So it would be one continuous
Yes,
piece for each.
but it would
opening.
be in
Mhm.
separate, it would be in 2 frames as you're seeing there. Like 1, 2, and then the third goes in, and then 3, 4, So that's how it would look because I didn't want something so transparent. I wanted something that would block the light,
Okay.
kind of like how they did back in, the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it colored, if that's
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
Looks like it was painted. They painted it
Mhm.
green. So maybe they were blocking the light at one point because it was painted over, which was the old, window.
So just for clarification, all 8 of those numbers you have would be that glass?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be, everything would be brand new, framing and everything.
And are you going to Bethlehem Glass? They would be only installing the glass and it's up to you to put in the frame?
Yes.
Okay. Because I would just suggest maybe you try and do it with an aluminum frame, which I think would hold up better. I think you're going to have some maintenance issues if you do it with wood over time.
I mean, that's what Bethlehem Glassworks told me to do. Oh.
Okay. All right, we could talk more about that. Yeah.
I
But
mean,
keep going.
we could talk about that, but that's fine. So that would be that.
Are you gonna do anything to the 2 picture windows? The 2 big windows?
No, I was gonna keep that.
Okay, I just,
As Jeffrey was right, it was originally, when the architect looked at it, my architect looked at it, it was originally big glass panes.
Yeah, I
You
see
could
that.
see where it was cut.
Yep.
And that's where you see the differences between the 2 different colored bricks. I just think it would be a lot of work to take all that out. And yeah, that would be a lot.
Okay.
So I mean, for the size of the commercial that it's going to be, I don't think I need a huge storefront like that.
Well, you're working with a contractor right now on this? Or
Yes.
Okay. I would just ask for pricing, just because, there's so much difference and, I mean, it's clear that brick is something that was infilled from, it's clear you used to have a much bigger opening there. So many of your neighbors have storefronts that are that size. I'm not saying, that, we think you should do it no matter what, but I'm just thinking maybe you might just want to price it out and see what it does for you. And, because at the same time, you could also address some of the entrance doors you have and just make it one system, where it's all aluminum storefront, it's all aluminum entrance doors. And that's really what's more typical, for this kind of building and what you see along the street there.
Yeah.
Just something to consider and, weigh into your, weigh into your budget and your long-term goals.
Right. I mean, I think a huge impact on the building when the windows open up on the top, it's just gonna have a huge impact. Just
It will. And,
it's gonna look beautiful
I actually like the
regardless.
glass you picked.
Yeah, I mean, I think the front doors are solid wood doors,
Mhm.
so I don't think weather will affect that. I mean, I'm not a huge contractor when it comes down to interior exterior, but I think they're exterior doors.
Yeah.
Because the one it has the old mail slot. They're still there, the 125. So that's actually the old original door. I don't know when, but I did spend like an hour and a half in the library trying to find information on this building.
Yeah.
Didn't find any pictures, but
Mhm.
it was an actual restaurant all the way up into the 60s, from the 30s all the way up to the 60s, different restaurants, and then ended up being a printer on 127, started in the 60s. That's when it separated. So, but yeah.
Does it look like your ceiling height on the interior? I'm assuming that it will be above the transoms you have there, right?
Mm-hmm. Keeping the height, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I want to keep that height. I actually want to do a Bethlehem Star Oh, and you did ask about the actual, I know I didn't have, I'm kind of, this book I made up from the last book, so the proposal books kind of go together. I didn't know if you guys still had the old one, but this light fixture that I had, which is on page 16, that's the light fixture I wanted to put. If you look, I'm an image person, so I'm going by the colors of the brick. So that middle brick pillar, if you're looking at both the doors, you have that single brick, darker brick pillar that's coming down. I wanted to put that light fixture there.
Okay.
So that would be, that would stand out, if that makes sense.
That wasn't really clear to me. I'm sorry. Could you, maybe Kelly, could you scroll to the drawing so we can see that on the drawing? Thank you.
If you go to, probably the best one, if you go to 7, page 7. Right there. So that darker pillar of bricks, that's where I want to put that light fixture. That would be, a common light, which would be a common electrical panel for me. That would be on all the time, dusk to dawn. And of course, the brick is going to be, I know you suggested painting it.
And do you have, I see it's 18¼ inches high. You don't have the width on it, do you?
No.
So in terms of height, I guess that's about 6 brick horses, right? Because it's
Probably gonna be a little bit more.
yeah, maybe 7.
Three bricks should give you.
And Mike, I'm just trying to remember if there was any like accessibility issues with a light fixture that size next to an entrance door.
Trying to find the width of the light fixture as we speak. It's just going to be a height issue. It's not going to be a width issue. So they're going to have to meet the minimum standards for clearance.
In the meantime, and we also need to know about the placement of the awning.
Awnings in the back. That would be on
Oh, that's for your rear tenants then?
the rear tenants.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that
That's
before.
what the awnings were for, because last time when we met, you did not want metal awnings. So I looked for this type of awning, which is material. So this one's a no.
Mhm. What are you planning to do with the ceiling within that recess at the entrance?
Back to the front of the building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back at the front.
It's right now, my contractor was saying he could either keep it or replace it with like a PVC board, just something that's outside, because it is metal right now, but it kind of looks ugly.
Were you talking about the vinyl underneath?
The vinyl underneath, yeah. Is that what
Yeah.
you're speaking of?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you going to put a canvas over the top of that? Is anything going over the top of the front?
No.
Nothing at
No,
all?
it's all closed.
Are you
No, it's
putting it-
all covered. What do you mean? Like
Well,
coming
with the
over?
gooseneck lights, I was wondering if you were putting a small awning over that, like it shows in your picture.
Oh, no, that's next door. I was just showing
Oh,
how,
okay, all right.
that's the Gampo, the
They could might
Chukasa.
Put like hardwood underneath that. Yeah. Protection on it.
You mean across here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you need protection over gooseneck lights, do you?
No, I was just for my own thinking.
Oh. Yeah, that's just the structure of the building next door. We actually used to own that building. We put those lights there. But,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It needs at least some kind of flashing, right? Like a drip edge maybe.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a little bit of
Mhm.
coverage over their box.
Well, I was trying to figure out, Larissa, we're still talking about that. We're talking about the edge over the front entrance, and like I see there's a little piece of it hanging down. And it looks like it could be aluminum. But we're just thinking you might have a maintenance issue with that if you don't cap it with something, not something to close that opening, but
mhm.
I think you might need some kind of small piece of flashing just to divert the water away from the brick.
Oh, no, definitely. Yeah. That would definitely be fixed. I mean, he's going to fix all that. And then up at the top, I forget what that's called, like all the way at the top where the metal casings, I think it is what it's called. On top of the where the,
Oh, on top of the caps?
yeah, the caps. That's gonna be replaced.
I'm sorry, missing what's being replaced?
The caps,
Oh,
yeah, we talked about that last time, because they're rusted, so I was gonna have him replace that and put new caps on there.
so you're saying currently it's capped with metal?
Mhm. Aluminum.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering what's underneath it, because, a lot of times in a building that age, it might be a piece of cast stone, like a concrete product.
Uh-huh.
Although I, kind of question, you know what?
What?
I'd remove it first and see what's there, because it's very possible that piece of metal was only put on there because of the siding you had. It might have just been put on there to keep rain or the elements from getting behind the siding, and
But-
it could turn out that you have a nice piece of stone there, which of course got a lot of holes in it now, like everything else.
Yeah.
So, I think if there is what we call cast stone, it's like a big piece of concrete meant to look like stone.
Oh, then I'll leave
If
that.
that's
Yeah.
what's there, just repair the
That-
holes in it,
Okay. Okay.
Good chance of it too.
Yeah, that's what I think, especially for this sort of building. But I guess the thing we still haven't really talked much about is what would you like to do with the brick, being that you have so many different things going on?
I mean, if you guys are okay with it, I just want to clean up the brick, to be honest. And I want to keep the doors. I want to paint the doors black with the moldings black. I want to put nice, like I want to do everything black, if that's okay. Black and brick.
Well, here's where we're at. Here's where our review board is on color selection. Generally, if it's a paintable surface,
Mhm.
we allow flexibility for you as the property owner to do what you want. When it comes to permanent materials, such as brick or stucco, then we do want to guide you on that. Did I get that all correct, Jeffrey?
Okay.
So, as far as we're concerned, it is your choice. Painting wood frames, wood windows.
Okay.
Well, let me rephrase that. If you were installing a new window, yeah, we want to guide you on that a bit. But I think for, in terms of maintaining things you already have on the building, I think, it sounds like, you're making some choices that I think are really up to you. I think as far as the brick goes, though, that to me, that's a discussion item, and I'd like to hear from other board members on this too. But I think number one, we got to start with what your preference is.
I mean, I don't know about painting the top of it. I mean, the top is all one color, it just needs to be
Yeah.
cleaned. I mean, the mortar, I mean, I don't know if anybody went to the building at all and looked at it, the mortar is not bad at all.
Mhm,
I mean, there's a couple little pieces here and there, but
mhm.
it was protected over the years. I
Sure.
mean, the brick is in very, very, very good condition.
What's
I
not
was
clear,
surprised.
what's not clear from the photos, well, it's a little clear. I mean, I do see places where it looks like things were patched. I see on some of the lower brick, it looks like there's maybe spots of dried glue. I
Yeah, that's
guess,
just glue stuff that.
I mean, the
that'll-
feeling is that it's all cleanable. And,
Right, exactly.
you know, so, you know, again, I think I'd like to hear
Mhm.
some discussion from some of the other commission members on this. Ken, you have any thoughts on this?
Well, if the brick up top is pretty uniform, perhaps that could be left as is and maybe cleaned up and do any repointing you have to do. And then maybe consider just painting everything below the transoms, just to get that a little bit more uniform as well. Because I don't like the paint brick, but
I know.
it is just such a hodgepodge. But hey, maybe it'll look good if it's all cleaned up. So.
And, you know, I guess the thing about it is, you know, you could always come back to us again and say, hey, I should really change my mind on this. Seth, are you out there? You've been pretty quiet tonight.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay.
I mean, everything sounds good. I like Ken's idea. The top looks pretty good.
Hey, thanks, Seth. Roger, any comments, Roger Hudak?
I like the brick along the top. You know, it just has to be cleaned up.
Okay.
That's all. Power wash, we'll see how bad things are if you clean it up. If it needs to be repointed or anything. That would be for me number one, because that building is beautiful. I mean, and it's not going to be cheap to put the full windows in. It would be outrageously expensive.
Okay.
I like where she's going though with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And Craig, I think I see you're out there now too, if you're able to comment on this. I think he's there. Oh, okay. Well, you know, I think you've helped us understand the project better, and you know, I think you've received plenty of comment. Just, is there any comment from the public on this application? If not, I'm going to see, you know, does the commission feel ready to give Larissa a motion on this project to help her move forward? All right, I'll give it a try. I'd like to make a motion for the applicant at 127, 125 West 4th Street for the following. That in terms of the brickwork, the applicant has agreed to clean existing brickwork and does not wish to paint it, but will restore as best as possible. You know, I guess cleaning off existing glue and removing dirt, making repairs to mortar joints and parts of the brick that have holes in it. There appears to be an existing coping above the building that steps, and we recommend that the existing metal is removed, and if there's a a cast stone coping that it be retained and if repairs are necessary, that you repair it. The applicant has presented to us a selection of a choice for glass to replace, to use for the transoms. I feel the glass is appropriate. It's reminiscent of glass block, and I think it, I think it's an appropriate choice. Though I recommend using an aluminum frame. I'm just a little concerned about, to me, there's, with wood, I'm just concerned about maintenance of it and how well it will hold up. I think if you want wood, we'll need more information on what the wood frame is. And I should specify too, when I say aluminum, I'm thinking of something that's known as a storefront type frame, which is a standard product. And I think your glass supplier can guide you on that too. The recess of the ceiling, we're recommending that you make repairs to the edge along it and use a drip edge pre-finished piece of metal that will divert water away from the brick and make any needed repairs. Gooseneck lighting. Okay, I think we talked about that, but I don't, did you tell us where it's being located?
That would be on the other one.
Is that meant to be on the residential side?
No, that was on, hold on. That, I submitted that because I wanted to put the gooseneck lights up for the commercial side, for them to put up signs when they go to you to get approval for signs. So they already have their lighting for their signs.
I think we're in agreement that the gooseneck fixture is appropriate, but I think for signage, you'll just come back to us at another time.
Yeah, they would submit their sign, yeah,
Okay.
right.
But
keeping it under the 3000K LED.
Yeah, we were talking in general for all exterior lighting, so including your wall sconce, which I think it's okay where you mentioned in the center next to the entrance door. And it would help us though in the future to include that in the drawing because we just like to see how it looks scale wise. The awning you are proposing is appropriate as long as it has open ends and is a Sunbrella type material, which is, a non-combustible material, and it's very common for that, for our district. And that's my motion. So do we have anyone who wishes to second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll take the call. Roger second?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, Mike got to you. Mike got here first, so.
Okay.
All right, no problem. All those in favor, Seth Cornish,
Aye.
Ken Lausch.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Craig Evans, I thought I saw you out there. Maybe you're not able to answer, but if you are, let us know. Roger Hudak.
Aye.
And Chaz Patrick.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And again, Larissa, thank you for coming before us with your project. We're glad to see it moving along.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think this is now our final applicant for the evening. Is that right?
That's correct. If we could just, I need to go back now to capture all the people that have joined
Okay.
last, so give me about a minute, please.
Okay, yeah. And in the meantime, I think we have representatives here for 317 through 327 South New Street, and please come up and join us at the front desk and announce your names. And you even.
Gary, I was trying to recuse myself there when I was on a go-to meeting for this one.
Okay.
And you guys couldn't hear me, that's why I came.
All right. Understood. It's good to see you, Ken, anyway.
Yeah, I'll take a seat over here.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sounds good. And Jordan, right?
Yes, Jordan Clark with the Bolino Group, the architects for the project.
And Jim Preston with Brockland DeVito, the attorney for the project.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for joining us. And I think, Jeff, we might just need another minute.
So we have someone identified as caller 03 and someone identified as BHS. If you could change your name setting so I can just include your appropriate first and last name for the minutes, please.
It's over here, it's right next to you.
Thanks.
There's also someone identified as owner. Again, for my minutes, I really need people to change their name setting on the camera to their actual name. And I'm sorry, the applicant is represented by, pardon me, just a second. I'm sorry, your names again, please?
Jordan Clark.
Jim Preston.
Thank you so much. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna go the people who won't identify themselves. If they do speak during
Rafael Palomino, chef and proprietor.
Oh, thank you, sorry. Okay, thank you. If they do speak, we'll have to get them to identify themselves. So 317 through 327 South New Street. The building description, period style, and defining features. I realize we have seen this project several times, but we do have a new commission member, and it's been about 3 months, so I am going to repeat my assessment of each site location prior to the proposed development. So in this image from left to right, so kind of behind the tree in the left corner, the building was never constructed at 317 South New Street, which currently serves as a vehicular and pedestrian access to a collection of rear additions and parking spaces within the interior of this city block. The structure at 319, you have to kind of squint. It's a one-story structure behind the tree back there. That is a single-story, semi-detached commercial wood frame building with a flat roof. The building dates from circa 1900. However, many architectural features have been lost over time, so it can no longer be assigned a defining style. An ornamental cornice at the main or the west facade has been covered over by a steep shed roof with asphalt shingles. The remaining front facade as well as the side and rear facades are painted beige. The storefront includes a large double shop window with upper divides set in wood frames, as a paneled and glazed entrance door and a retractable awning. The structure to the right of that, so slightly hidden by the tree and then in full force, that's 321 through 323 South New Street. It is a 3-story, 4-bay attached commercial and residential building, a masonry building with a flat roof, ornamental upper cornice, decorative window heads, and an altered storefront, or plural storefronts, sorry. The building dates from circa 1885 and is Italianate in style. The original brick facade is painted beige, while the 2 storefronts include large divided glass display windows that are set in aluminum frames. They have recessed entrances and retractable awnings. The property also includes a series of 2-story and single-story rear additions, several dating from the early 20th century, as evidenced by segmental brick arched window and door openings. The structure to the right of that, so the structure at 325 South New Street, is a 3-story, 3-bay attached commercial and residential brick masonry building with a flat roof and altered storefront. Like the adjacent structure, this building dates from circa 1885 and was probably Italianate in style. However, the exposed front facade was treated with a stucco veneer and given an etched pattern often referred to as brick coat in imitation red brick sometime during the mid-20th century. The storefront was probably altered at the same time, resulting in one set of steps that lead up to double doors into a commercial space, and that is flanked on either side by small shop windows, while another set of steps lead up to a single door that services the residential units at the upper floor levels. A shed roof with asphalt shingles delineates the entry level from the upper floor levels and includes a retractable awning. The remaining visible side facade, so because of the one story you can actually see the side facade, and as well as the rear facade have been covered with a yellow stucco with a textured surface. The original architectural features were lost during facade renovations, so it can no longer be assigned a defining architectural style. The entire structure seems to be vacant. The structure then to the right of that is 327 South New Street. It is a single-story attached commercial wood frame building with a flat roof and includes a large single-story masonry rear addition with a flat roof. The main building dates from circa 1900, as does the rear addition. However, many architectural features were lost over time, so it can no longer be assigned a defining style. There's an ornamental upper cornice at the main or west facade that remains visible and is painted deep red, while the upper facade has been covered over and painted bright white. The remaining front facade is painted deep red, while the rear facade has been covered in yellow stucco with a textured surface. The storefront includes an off-center paneled and glazed entrance door, a large shop window set in wood frames, 2 smaller shop windows set in aluminum frames, as well as a retractable awning. So those are all the properties that make up tonight's discussion, the existing properties. According to the agenda, it is proposed to demolish 4 buildings. Again, I cited 5 sites. The far left site is not built. It is just an empty property. To demolish 4 buildings to construct a multi-story mixed-use apartment building. The guideline citations I used for my assessment include Secretary of Interior Standards number 2, 5, 6, and 9. They've all been referenced earlier this evening, so I won't repeat those. The Bethlehem Ordinance that Mr. Lader referenced at the beginning of tonight's meeting. The Historic Conservation Guidelines for signage and awnings that I cited with agenda item number 2 and 3. The Historic Commission guidelines concerning demolition. They state that HCC will not recommend approval for demolition unless the proposed demolition involves a non-significant building, provided the demolition will not adversely affect parts of the site or adjacent properties that are significant. And then finally, the Historic Conservation District design guidelines concerning new construction. I'm not going to read the entire set, but they include such issues as size, scale, proportion, rhythm and patterns, window and door openings, materials and textures, architectural details, shape and massing, as well as streetscapes. And they all reference the period of interpretation of the district, which is 1895 to 1950. So within each of those categories, the guidelines reference things that are predictable, typical, assumed, and appropriate for the district, even with new construction. So my evaluation and recommendations. During the HCC meeting on January the 25th of 2021, the applicant contended that all 4 existing structures at the proposed project location have exceeded their anticipated lifespans and exhibit code compliance, life safety, as well as environmental issues that preclude viability. The applicant justified the 12-story height of the proposed replacement structure with a desire to maximize the development allowed by the zoning ordinance, and explained that architectural details of demolished structures were inspiration for portions of the proposed replacement. In response to the applicant's presentation, The HCC commended the overall design as attractive. However, the proposal to replace the existing 1- and 3-story structures with one 12-story building was deemed by HCC as inappropriate and incompatible with the relevant design guidelines. The applicant was encouraged to explore integration of one or more existing buildings into the overall design proposal, especially the contributing Italianate structure located at 321 through 323 South Main Street. Several HCC members noted that the development projects taller than 5 stories are inappropriate for the current location as well as for the overall historic district. The applicant returned to HCC on February the 22nd, 2021 with the certificate of appropriateness application to demolish the existing structures at 319, 325, and 327 South New Street, while integrating the rehabilitated front facade of the contributing structure at 321 through 323 South New Street into the overall development project. The design also incorporated the dominant cornice height of the existing streetscape at the 3rd floor level facades. However, the revised proposal rose another 10 stories, resulting in a 13-story building that significantly digressed from the roof heights of the adjacent buildings and represented an increase of 1 floor level to the previous 12-story building. HCC expressed appreciation for the applicant's integration of the front facade of the contributing structure within the design, and noted the design approach was successful at the street level. However, the impact of the proposed high-rise building on the immediate streetscape, as well as on the overall historic conservation district, was of great concern to HCC. Similar sentiments were expressed by 10 individuals during the public commentary portion of the meeting, with no public support for the proposed building height. HCC adopted a proposal 6-0 to 1, so there was one extension, that City Council deny a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed 13-story mixed-use high-rise development. The applicant successfully petitioned for removal of the HCC motion to deny a recommendation from the subsequent Bethlehem City Council meeting agenda in order to amend their design proposal and resubmit for further assessment by HCC. The applicant returned to HCC on April the 26th, 2021, with the intent to demolish 4 existing buildings as before and to also rehabilitate the one facade as before, as well as to develop the adjacent alley located at 317. And I think I forgot to mention that before, but every one of these have included development of the alley at 317 South New Street. At that time, to replace those with a 10-story commercial and residential building. Similar to the previous assessment, HCC expressed appreciation for the applicant's integration of the front facade of the Italianate structure and felt that the street level design was successful. However, the impact of the high-rise building on the streetscape as well as the district was of great concern. Similar sentiments were expressed by 5 individuals during public commentary with no public support for the proposed building height. HCC adopted a unanimous proposal the council deny a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the 3 buildings, rehabilitate the one facade, and construct a 10-story mixed-use building. At that time, HCC expressed support for development at the current location. However, the proposal to replace 1- and 3-story buildings with a 10-story structure was determined inappropriate for the streetscape, for the district, and then cited various Secretary of Interior standards, specifically number 9, concerning that the new work will be, quote, compatible with the size, scale, and proportion and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. They also cited the Bethlehem Ordinance as well as design guidelines for demolition and new construction as reason for their denial. During the meeting on June the 1st, 2021, select members of Bethlehem City Council confirmed that they had received an updated set of drawings for the applicant's development proposal that reduced the overall building height from that was proposed and denied by HCC. So City Council tabled the decision to consider HCC's recommendation to deny a certificate of appropriateness until HCC could assess the revised design. So the current application, which we all have now in front of us, and the supplementals represent the applicant's response to City Council from earlier this month. The cover letter dated June the 4th indicates the intent to demolish, as before, 4 existing structures at 319 through 327. South New Street developed the adjacent alley at 317 to retain the facade at 321 through 323 and replace everything else with a 9-story commercial and residential building. So just to summarize, we first saw a 12-story, then a 13-story, then a 10-story, and now we're seeing a 9-story proposal. Although not included with this, there was previously an engineering report that recommended demolition of all structures based on life safety and code compliance issues, as well as environmental concerns that were observed during the inspection of the property on August the 11th of 2020. The current cover letter, as well as the accompanying architectural renderings and drawing sheets, describe a proposed replacement structure as a 9-story mixed-use building that measures approximately 150 feet wide, approximately 75 feet deep, and approximately 88 feet at the shortest or southwest corner, and approximately 92 feet at the tallest or the northwest corner. And those heights do not include the mechanical penthouse. The proposed entry level includes 6,500 square feet of commercial and community spaces, while the proposed upper floor levels include 8,000 square feet each, with a mix of 1-bedroom, 1-bath, as well as 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment units totaling 61 units. The applicant's project overview references a recent marketing and demographic study of downtown Bethlehem and notes, quote, a strong need for market rate apartment housing for workforce individuals, healthcare providers, young professionals, life science and university communities and graduate students, end quote. Any references to affordable housing could not be found within the cover letter, the project overview, or on the architectural drawings. HCC assessments and recommendations should focus on 3 main concepts. We've had these in the past. So I've organized my assessment based on the first, which is demolition. The second kind of category is size and scale. And then if we get to it, we haven't so far, if we get to it, new construction. So demolition. The demolition guidelines concerning requests for demolition note that HCC encourages the applicant to evaluate the significance of buildings within the historic district, and all attempts to reuse historical buildings are exhausted prior to considering demolition. Those guidelines continue that HCC will not adopt a motion in support of demolition unless the proposed demolition involves non-significant buildings or buildings that will not adversely affect parts of the site or adjacent properties that are significant, or when the applicant can demonstrate they have exhausted all other options and will suffer undue economic hardship. Strictly interpreted, all 4 existing buildings qualify as contributing structures to the district because they were built during the period of interpretation. As I stated before, that's between 1885 and 1950. And just because of their age, they do fit the definition of contributing structures. However, the structures at 319, 325, and 327 South New Street have been significantly compromised over time, so all 3 can no longer be assigned architectural styles. As single-story structures, 319 and 327 South New Street also don't conform to the typical 2, 3, and 4 stories of contributing structures within the district. Rather, both from a city planning perspective are perceived more as appendages or infills to the adjacent structures. However, the structure at 321 through 323 South New Street does exhibit typical size, scale, and proportion, as well as window openings of the district's mixed-use buildings, and retains original architectural detailing. Thus, it does continue to serve as a contributing structure within the district. Based on relevant design guidelines, the proposal to demolish structures at 319, 325, and 327, that is conceivable and remains part of the current development proposal. As previously encouraged by HCC, the rehabilitated front facade of the existing structure at 321 through 323 South New Street is now integrated into the overall design development. So Kelly, if you could scroll down further here, we now see kind of centered in the new development, that existing facade. You can tell by the delineated window openings to the left and the right. The single story and the 3-story adjacent building have now graphically been removed and demolished. We did mention previously that portions of that building where the facade is being retained do date, and you can see remnants from that period. I don't know if anybody has investigated if there are portions of that that actually could be integrated. When you look at the floor plans, I think that's the food court area, and there might be details, you know, existing that have some kind of a component to them. You might could even incorporate into that food court area. I don't know the layouts of those, but because they do date from that time, it would be nice to at least consider that. So that's the first part, demolition. So now moving to the second category, size and scale. Should HCC approve proposed demolition, those requests are predicated on the applicant's ability to replace the lost buildings with a design proposal that satisfies the guidelines for new construction within the district. Those guidelines note that new construction should reflect the dominant cornice and roof heights of the adjacent buildings and proportions of building elements to one another and to the streetscape. They continue that, quote, in South Bethlehem, where 2-, 3-, and 4-story buildings are the norm, buildings that digress from these standards by any great degree seriously impact the district as a whole. If large-scale construction is considered, particular attention will be given to the effect of the proposed building on the immediate streetscape, which is typically our limitation, but then because of the size, its ramifications on the overall district. The current design proposal addresses the existing dominant cornice height by incorporating such details at the 3rd floor level. So here we see the existing building. To the right, they've now adopted the cornice line, and it more or less than hits the cornice line of the existing building they don't propose to demolish to the right. Sorry, I lost my place there. However, the revised design rises another 6 stories, resulting in a 9-story building. And here you see above that 3-story cornice line, the additional 6 floors. And that breaks that portion I read from the design guidelines, which states that it does indeed significantly digress from the roof heights of the adjacent buildings, and ultimately represents the decrease of 1 floor level from the previous 10-story building. Previously, the applicant referenced the nearby Rooney building. It actually is in this drawing, but I've asked Kelly not to show that. We caution that that's was done before these guidelines were established and really didn't help their case by referencing that as any kind of reference point. So that's why I'm focusing on this block rather than extending beyond. The greenway is located due south, so to the left. This image stops before the greenway really starts. It is located due south and downhill from the proposed 9-story development project. So the resulting shadow lines would definitely extend well beyond the width of the greenway during much of the day. There are a couple of perspective drawings. I don't know if they really do justice to a true, what we call a solar study. I would be very curious to see how much of a 9-story building would cast shadow on the greenway and for how long. Obviously different times of the year, different angles. So based upon the various relevant design guidelines, the current proposal for a 9-story structure, in my opinion, is not appropriate for the immediate streetscape and definitely not for the overall district. Now moving to the 3rd category, new construction. Design guidelines continue by referencing such important issues as rhythm and patterns, window and door openings, materials and textures, and architectural details, shapes and massing, as well as streetscapes. So Kelly, now if we could please go to the architectural drawings. They are flat drawings and they have the dimension lines of the various floor levels. And let's just stay at this point with the main facade, the street facing facade. Maybe during the discussion, we might also look at the others, but for right now, the so-called, it would be the west elevation. So the upper left there, yeah, I think that's sufficient, at least for my description right now. The proposed floor heights of the lowest levels match those of the neighboring buildings. I described that earlier. We saw that in the photo montage. While the intermediate cornice emphasizes the transition between the commercial street level to the residential upper floor levels. The integration of the existing facade at 321, 323 South New Street is reflected within the provided drawing. So again, that's the center portion of the street facade, the three-level portion that is capped with the cornice. However, the relationship of that structure to the upper floor levels is still kind of, in my opinion, warrants some further development. You can see above it, it already switches brick types. Some of the windows are starting to align, which is positive. In the past, none of the windows aligned. But still, kind of the way the lower facade is delineated with from left to right, let's call it a pass-through or a tunnel. Then you got a cafe, then you got the existing building, and then the replacement that really gives a rhythm of 4 or even 5 structures. And then when you go up above, you see that that rhythm is broken. It doesn't really repeat. I'm not saying it has to be consistent, and it is getting a lot closer to something I think that would be appropriate from what we've seen. But I do think it could use a bit more exploration.
Sorry, Jeffrey, can you repeat how you see the rhythm of this?
I said I'm starting to see, in the previous iterations, there was no alignment of, say, any of the existing windows of the Italianate building. I'm starting to see some kind of alignments. I'm not saying that they are truly aligned, but some windows are, beginning to align with at least one of the two, and I'm not saying all of them do. But overall, the rhythm established on the street level is definitely not repeated upper, so it's getting closer, I think, in a lot of ways from what we saw previously, but there still seems to be quite a disconnect between the street level and the upper floors. And I'm assuming that's intentional, but it kind of breaks from our guidelines.
And what you said something that's split 4 or 5?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you kind of read the street level, we have a delineation, say, from the tunnel or the pass through. Call that one thing. Then you have the cafe at street level is another, and above that, the facade does kind of repeat those delineations. But then as you move forward to the right, the street level has yet another delineation, but that delineation isn't repeated above. And then similarly, the final right portion on the street level, delineation is not repeated above again. So it starts to, connect street level to above, and then that kind of breaks down. But I'm sure they have certain logic behind it. When we get to the discussion, they might describe that. It is getting closer compared to the previous iterations of alignment, which before we didn't see much connection at all. But again, based on the guidelines, there is still kind of a disconnect between the street level and then the upper portions. As currently depicted, the uppermost floor level seems to terminate just above the window line, and you really have to squint. You can see above the windows there's I think a ceiling level or a delineation of the height there, and then there's a slight cornice of just a few inches. In my opinion, that really doesn't allow adequate room for any kind of roof structure behind there. And definitely there's no parapet, which is quite unusual for a high-rise to not have a parapet. So I'm definitely requesting clarification about that. Seems like the building just got lopped off and someone forgot to add, the needed structure and parapet and all that goes above that top window line. Architectural features include double hung windows, casement or fixed sash, I really couldn't tell, cast sills and lintels, as well as expressed cornices. The proposed facade materials identified on the architectural drawing we have in front of us consist of, quote, natural stone veneer, synthetic brick veneer, and synthetic stone veneer. The term synthetic veneer is not identified within the design guidelines as appropriate for the district. So if we get this far with the discussion, I do think the clarification is warranted what is meant by synthetic veneer. Again, when you Google that, you just get 1,000 different possibilities. So not quite sure what is intended there. The outer wall condition of the upper floor level at the far left, and we've talked about this previously, seems to cantilever out over the support column at the left. We had talked about that's possibly, from an engineering standpoint, possible, and then we requested that perhaps that column needs to be beefed up. So we don't really approve cantilevers in the district. So as you go up that far left column, you see it extends out the wall system above. I'm not denying that that column is probably reduced to its structural size, but to avoid the concern that we avoid any kind of cantilevers in the district, you might want to then beef up the column to compensate for that differential. The subsequent reviews, so we can talk about those certain things. If we go forward and things are approved, we're definitely going to have to talk about those kind of details and much more detail concerning material submittals, all those kind of things. And I think that's expected. I just don't want that to be a surprise, that if we say this window is okay, that doesn't mean that's the final for the review. We'll still press for materiality and manufacturer, all those kind of things. So they would include all the windows and door types, what kind of sills and lintels we're talking about, the profiles, what kind of materials and the exact profiles, any kind of facade materials referenced here. We would want to see, tangible samples for all of those. And there's no reference yet of light fixtures. I'm not complaining, that comes later, but I just want to call attention what we should expect, just like we saw with the previous applicant, to see more detail as we move forward. Now that we're back in person, perfect, as you can bring samples to the meeting, then leave them here and we can take a closer look. For ongoing project development, the applicant should also note that tinted or reflective glass is not appropriate within the district. Appropriate light divisions should always be taller than they are wide. In the past, there were some windows that were wider than tall. It looks like the divisions in the double hungs are square. You need to massage that just a little bit to make sure those divisions are at least slightly taller than they are horizontal. Square or wider divisions are not appropriate in the district. What seem to be either casement windows or fixed windows seem to have lower operating hoppers, which we don't really have in the district, and that's not in the guidelines. So that could be a topic for discussion if we get to these kind of details tonight. The applicant should take a look at our guidelines for storefronts. We do have specific guidelines for storefronts. So if we move forward and we're going to want more detail in the storefronts, that'll help guide you what we're kind of looking for in reference to size of materials, profiles, those kind of things. And then there are also guidelines for signage and awnings. So because this is a big development project, we will be requesting an overall signage concept so that as you get tenants, we're not constantly getting, applications for signage. You have a system that we can approve in advance and then they fit within that system. And those same guidelines also talk about the awnings, and we just had that with the previous applicant. We need to make sure that those are canvas awnings, that they're on a fixed frame. You are allowed to have the front valance flap. They do need to be loose rather than a frame for the valance so that they kind of flap. And Kelly, if you could scroll to the far right, it looks like from the side that they have closed ends, and we want to see those ends open. So I know it's a tiny detail and we have plenty of time to develop further just in the future. Just make sure those ends are not closed but open. So again, Gary, if we could structure the meeting, demolition and size and scale, and then if we have time still, we can get into the specifics of design. In the past, we didn't get into too many specifics because there was a motion put forth for denial. So that's why we haven't really been able to massage too much in reference to those architectural details.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Jordan, for joining us again, and thank you for all the efforts you've been making. If you would you be able to comment, starting on, starting from the points that Jeffrey mentioned, perhaps, in an overview, again, we're focused on the request for demolition of these 4 structures, and then we'd like to, of course, talk about the size and scale of the new proposal. So go ahead.
Sure. So our case for the demolition hasn't really wavered much since we started coming here in January. We believe the buildings are past their lifespan. We do plan on integrating that existing facade as discussed and as mentioned by Jeffrey, so that we have not changed on that. The other buildings, for the reasons cited, we feel they should be demolished in favor of the project. One thing we want to point out is the project now matches the heights of the buildings across the street.
Okay.
So they are in line with existing previously approved structures. That's really it. What we did, we reduced the building height yet again. We removed the rooftop terrace in favor of squaring off the building to minimize unit loss with another reduction. Building size.
Can you talk a little bit more about the remaining building that you've integrated? I believe that's 321, 323. Can you talk a little bit about what you expect to do to be able to maintain that facade?
Yeah, we expect to maintain the front facade, anchoring it to the structure behind, the new structure behind.
Mhm.
How? We have not finalized that yet because we don't know if we can do the project, but we will have our structural engineers investigating, determine the best course forward to do that. It has been done before. We know that we're not the first people to attempt it.
I see the floor plans look like, for the units, look like they've incorporated in existing window locations too. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you expecting to use the existing windows too? I guess I'm trying to.
If we can, yes, we would like to, but if they had to be a satisfied replacement, that's another discussion. We just have not been able to further evaluate, if they're operable or, serviceable at this time.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the things, we'd all like to get a better sense of is, the kind of work you're expecting, what, how much can you really preserve of that facade and what's going to be involved in it? Is it going to be one of those things, well, oops, the whole thing just fell down, because we couldn't help it. That's how it goes. I guess like a plan for how to, how to stabilize it while you're doing all the other work would probably be helpful.
Yeah, I imagine there'll be some temporary steel supports in there, anchored in the front and back, holding it in place.
There's a lot of great things, about, I think it really helps your project in some ways, with the scale and, and I think, it's a because it is a contributing building. I think you're, preserving that part of history, I think is something we all appreciate. And, I think there's definitely more to say about it, but, and then of course, I think it's still, even though you've reduced the number of stories on this, I think that's probably the bigger part of the discussion. So maybe we could talk a bit about that. And
sure. Every time we come back, we're shorter and shorter, but now we're in line with previously approved structures. So we feel that we're at an acceptable height because there's a precedent there. We're focused more on the overall building height, not the number of stories.
Mm-hmm. What type of construction is this building going to be? I'm thinking in particular that upper story, it doesn't look like there's very much between the upper story windows and the head. And
that's precast concrete.
Oh, okay. So that's probably how you're able to do that. And
yeah, we only need from ceiling to finished roof about 14 inches.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't see on, so it's 14 inches, the typical thickness from each floor?
Oh, no, the 8-inch, but then, insulation and roofing material.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
About 14 inches.
Okay. So is the entire exterior load bearing and those planks are bearing from exterior to something in the center?
No, there's a column grid, the center core.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So it's all precast, it's all concrete superstructure.
Mm-hmm.
So that column in question is actually inside the building and it's being wrapped, but we could certainly discuss the proportion of the finished face.
Mm-hmm.
That we have no issue with at all.
Any other commission members have some comments?
Yeah, I really like what I'm seeing from the ground up to the top of the third story or so. I think it.
I'm sorry, Seth, is that you?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I liked what I saw from the bottom going up to the third story or so. I thought that was absolutely historically appropriate. I maintain that that building is too tall by about 5 stories.
Seth, can you clarify for everyone, why do you feel it is 5 stories too tall?
I'd be happy to do that. So when this building first came to us, I went and spent about an hour, and I went to downtown South Bethlehem and drove around and got out of my car and stood around and looked at everything and what I could see in the historic district. And what I saw was an overwhelming number of 2, 3, and 4-story buildings. And that's the rhythm of South Bethlehem. Now, there have been some buildings that have been built there that are not to that rhythm. And I would freely admit that it is my opinion that the Historic Commission has erred in granting at least one certificate of appropriateness. And I would also argue that just because there have been errors made in the past doesn't mean that we need to make more errors in the future. For example, the Rooney Building is not a contributing structure to our district, does not really contribute at all, and in fact is probably a mistake because of the height in our district. So I think that height is very important in South Bethlehem, mass and scale very important, and I think we're losing sight of that in this project.
Okay. Well, thank you, Seth. Roger, I see you have a green light on.
One of the things that bothered me most about this project was that if you look where the tunnel is on the bottom, the tunnel goes over the alley. I forget the name of the street, okay, which is fine. But all of the square footage above that is on city property. So I questioned City Hall, Mayor's office, and then the tax attorneys, whether or not they were going to be paying taxes on that, all of those apartments and what have you going up, that are above the alley. And they told me that yes, they would be responsible for the square footage of the apartments of the entire building, even though that one section is over the city street. That to me changed my mind a little bit. The height of the building bothers me to no end. The city council keeps banging it back to us that we're supposed to make the decision because they don't want to upset any developers. And that bothers me a lot. I like the building, the process, I like the project. And since they're paying taxes on the property that goes over a city street, that precedent is set. So we're not going to have some developer build a building that crosses over 3rd Street and is tax-free. That, none of that's going to happen. So my understanding is that they're going to be paying taxes on that real estate. That to me is very important. Now the height, that again, I thought city council would do a better job of it, but they didn't. They didn't. But I did change my mind about the project when I realized that we're going to have somebody paying taxes on property that is still ours. That's all I got.
Roger, do you have any direction for the applicant, what you feel would be an appropriate building height?
What was the building height that city council approved?
I don't believe city council approved any building height.
No kidding. Are you kidding me? Who do they expect is going to approve this stuff?
Okay.
No, no. I would really love to see city council look at this project as well. That if we would give it, you know, a thumbs up upon approval by city council. I don't want to hear from the folks that said, no, this project is too big. Where were they when the New Street project was built? You know, we shall see. I like the project. I like the building, and the height that I throw back at city council and the mayor's office. They got to do that. Why are we the ones that always get stuck, you know, looking like the bad guy? What, nobody came to us because we weren't around. When the Rooney building came up, if Lehigh University bought that real estate, they would put this building up in a heartbeat and get away with it. I rest my case.
Thank you, Roger. Do we have any other commission members who would like to comment on this tonight? Thank you.
Yep. So I appreciate the efforts. I do appreciate the incorporation of the existing 321, 323 South New Street structure in the facade. Yes, Roger, you're right. They do have to pay the taxes and everything above that through Graham Street there. I think this project did come a long way from when it was first submitted to us. I mean, at first it was 12 stories and then went to 13, and it's made its way down to 9. I think that is more of an appropriate height for this district, for this location. There is some things that I would like to see a little bit different or change in the style. I think there needs to be a little bit more rhythm with the windows above the 321, 323 for the upper floors. I guess it would be 3 through 9. I do think a parapet is going to be a necessary requirement in the construction. But I do think I think you're close. You're very good. I think this height is in more the appropriate range for this location. That's all I have to say about this.
Hey, thanks, Mike.
Yep.
You know, Jordan, the submission we had emailed to us showed the streetscape and including the Rooney building. I know we don't want the Rooney building really even part of the picture, but I guess the main thing I thought when I saw the new proposal was I do feel you're headed in the right direction with building height, and I know you know I agree with the commission members. Our predominant building height is, you know, if you look at the Flatiron building, really about 5 stories. I think I would just like to comment a little bit on the facade design too, and just you know, just to repeat some of the comments Jeffrey made and Mike made as well. You know, I'm looking at the older submission here, but oh, thanks, Kelly. Are we able to go back to the overall streetscape that you had up before that shows the facade? Okay, yeah, that helps. Thanks. You know, I think these are going to end up being things that we'll want to talk about more for next time. You know, we talked a little bit about the proportion of the windows. I'm not sure I understand why the apartments have 2 different window types, but you know, I think just to really fit more with our historic guidelines, you know, I'd encourage you to consider double hungs that again are more vertical in proportion. And you know, I mean, if you want to gang 2 together, that'd be fine. But you know, the awning type is not really appropriate for a district. I think maybe the main comment I'd like to make though is you know, while you did a great job with incorporating, at least in the drawing, with incorporating the existing facade, and you know, I think tying in the building on the street next to it, you know, tying in the new construction starts to look believable. You know, I'd like to, you know, personally, I'd like to see you do more with tying the whole building together. And, you know, to me, I think what that means is, you know, the upper part of the building just looks like a different building than the lower part. And, you know, somehow I'd like to, I'd hope you could integrate it more and make it all work together. The other thing I find a little objectionable is I think the brick colors right now look like they're a reference to the Rooney building as well. And, you know, I almost feel like that's, well, what's a nice way to put this? I wish you wouldn't do that. You know, to me, I think referencing your next door neighbors that are all red brick, like I could see a combination of red brick and you know, limestone or, you know, cast stone. To me, that's appropriate.
We take no issue discussing the windows or the brick colors. That's totally on the table.
And I'm just saying this now, you know, again, this is my opinion though, based on what's, you know, what your adjacent neighbors are, what's predominant in our district, and my understanding of the design guidelines. You know, so I'm just giving you these thoughts and tips, you know, based on what I see as appropriate. And, you know, again, I think we're probably going to see you back here. And I think the main thing on the table tonight really is, you know, getting some direction on size and scale and massing of this building. So having said all that, is it okay if we open, I think there's probably members of the public out there who want to speak now too. Is it okay if we open this up to the public at this point? Okay. So, you know, I know there's members of the public out there who want to comment on this project, I believe. If there are, please announce yourself.
Hi, Gary. This is Beth Starbuck.
Oh, hi, Beth. Thank you for joining us.
As many of you know, and until recently, I was a member of the HCC, but I was not reappointed to the commission. So after 21 years of serving on the commission, I'm for the first time addressing you tonight in the public comment portion of the meeting. Of course, the height is an issue and has been discussed many times. I would just urge the members of the commission to look at our own guidelines that Bethlehem bought and paid for, that shows little pictures of buildings sitting next to each other with one building on either side, a row of three buildings with three-story buildings with a two-story building in between, and an X on the two-story building. So our guidelines say we shouldn't even vary building height from building to building by 1 story. And here we're adding how many stories? 6 onto what is typical for the area. So I still think that's a major concern, and I think it's a mistake. I think the whole idea of wanting taller buildings is not necessary, and there would be plenty of development that could be shorter and appropriate for the district and still be profitable. However, beyond that, and even if you were going to be willing to accept a building that was atypically tall, the problem with this building is that it is not architecturally appropriate. It's not cohesive. The bottom 3 stories are nice and relate to the streetscape well. They are scaled historically, but the floors above the 3rd floor appear to be 2 entirely different buildings that were just plopped on top. They look like 2 modern hotels that have been plunked on top of 3 to 4 three-story traditional structures. It is not a historically appropriate design. Buildings are built from the ground up. So you have a bottom layer and the top layer relates to the bottom layer. In the middle of the facade, that's 21 to 23 South New, which I'm thankful they're considering, preserving that. That's good. But it's even a change of brick color in the middle of that structure. It's like it's a completely different building from what's underneath. And buildings are built from the bottom up. So it makes no sense visually. It's not historically proper, and it's not even attractive in my mind. So beyond the historically appropriate, it is not a good looking building when you put two new buildings on top of a historically appropriate row. No. Anyway, I appreciate your allowing me to comment. Good luck with all this. I feel for you.
Well, thank you, Beth. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to comment on this?
I would, please.
And who's this?
This is Kim Carroll Smith.
Okay. Hi, Kim. Thank you for joining us.
Do you need any other information? I forget how this works.
Yeah, no, it's okay, Kim. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I want to just for a moment say 2 words of thanks. One to Ms. Starbuck for her service for all these years, because she's worked so hard and has so much expertise to share. And I'm really grateful that she's done so much in Bethlehem for both historic districts. She's actually on the other one as well. But the other thanks I wanted to say is she articulated something that has really baffled some of us as we've looked at this building. We couldn't figure out what was so disturbing about the structure, even though it sort of had, it has aspects that look historical and look sort of complementary to the historic district, but there was something jarring about it. And I think actually finally hearing someone say it looks like 2 buildings got plopped on top of the other ones, I think that captured, at least for me, what I've been thinking and what so many people have been sort of agonizing about. Why doesn't it look right? When the developer said that the height of this current proposal matches the building across the street, I just had a question. Do you mean the one directly across the street, the Villa building, or do you mean like the ones further down the block? Can I ask that question? I don't know if they can answer it or if I just have to talk randomly into the air.
No, you're welcome to respond, Jordan.
Category, yes, in reference to the parking garage next door.
Okay, because my understanding is that just like the Rooney building, those would not be considered contributing buildings to the historic district. So comparing the height there would not be appropriate because those aren't historical contributing structures. They just happen to be tall buildings nearby. They were approved, and I would like to just sort of agree with Mr. Cornish, who I thought captured it beautifully, to say, because we made a mistake in the past, you want to err again. I have heard members of the Historic Conservation Commission say before that they regarded that building down there on New, and I know this is irrelevant to what we're talking about at the moment, but as a mistake. So it was too tall, and they didn't realize it was going to be too tall until it got built. So I would just like to say one thing that we heard from both the city and the HCC. When we asked this specifically, this is citizens, residents, taxpayers asked, won't this new street building be used as precedent for future buildings? And they said, no, we don't use precedents like that. Every building stands on its own. So I would beg you not to, 1, use an inappropriate building that's not a contributing structure to the historic district as a measurement, but 2, not to use a precedent that, this building was built, particularly since it's not contributing, and maybe with an error. So I think that's what they must have meant when they said, no, we never use precedents. We just let things stand on their own. So I just want to remind you that that's what I heard a number of you say, and I also heard the city say it to residents. In response to Mr. Hudak's comments, and I think I'm echoing probably a little bit about what Ms. Starbuck said, if the HCC doesn't uphold the scale and height guidelines, who's going to? Clearly, we've heard from the city council folks that they don't really get why these guidelines are important. I mean, I think that's what I heard at the last city council meeting. They said, we don't need to worry about it so much. You know, we need buildings, and we need big buildings, and we need apartment buildings, and high rises aren't so bad. The job of the HCC, as I understand it, is to uphold these guidelines that Ms. Starbuck said are bought and paid for by the city. And that height is a key feature. That scale piece is an enormously important piece of what happens in that historic conservation district, because it's about whether it blends or not. And I was going to say the exact same thing about those little drawings, you know, with the X through it. This is like beyond the X. This is so far beyond that X, the X'd out building in your guidelines that, you know, it's kind of astounding. So I would really plea for you to think about those guidelines and to recognize that you have power here. Maybe they'll totally go against your recommendations. That's their decision. But please have some integrity about this HCC and its guidelines, because we need you. This is what keeps us having a historic fabric in the South Side. And if you don't do that for us, there is nobody else who has those guidelines that they have to live by, that they want to honor, and that are going to make a difference in what that historic fabric looks like going into the future. So please stick by those guidelines. Please use those as your guidelines, and please vote according to those guidelines. I think that's everything I wanted to say, but I'm sure there are more things. But thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you for your comments, Kim. And I think we all absolutely agree with you that we're grateful to have Beth serve on this commission for all this time.
Thanks. Well, great. I'm glad you're all doing this, and I appreciate the time that you guys put into it, because I know it can't be easy. And Mr. Patrick, I don't mean in any way to cast an aspersion on your joining the commission, because I think it's great to have Southside business people. I know that we are going to miss Beth's expertise in design and sort of tweaking design. She's good at that kind of eyeballing and the materials and things. So I hope that maybe in the future you're going to be appointing somebody who does that sort of thing. But I think it's really valuable that we have people who understand the South Side and who see why historic preservation is an economic driver for our city, because I'm afraid that a lot of folks don't understand that and haven't read the studies that show that. So thanks, HCC.
All right, thank you too. Any other comments from the public? Okay, if there's no other comments, I'm going to ask if a commission member can venture forth a.
Can I be heard? Are you going to go to a vote?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to at least
Yes.
just have a minute or two.
Yes, I appreciate that.
And first of all, thank you for taking this under consideration. And I want to be clear that we appreciate very much the work that this commission does. You know, it's no secret here in the Valley that the city has done a remarkable job preserving its historical ambience, and especially in those sections that are covered by these district codes. And I say the city has done a remarkable job, and with no disrespect intended, I mean the city itself, because while the Historic Commission recommends, the city has to give the ultimate approval.
Mm-hmm.
So the elephant in the room here is the size of this building. We've talked about it. Everybody's aware of that. It's going back and forth. Our architect is going to a heck of a time designing facades and different treatments and so forth when they can't even be certain if the project is viable or not. Really, that's what we're talking about. So I think we need to, I guess the phrase is kill it or cure it in terms of the building height, because that really is that's the existential question here. We would welcome the opportunity, look forward to coming back and working with you on a lot of these issues, the blending. And I'll let Jordan, am I wrong in that? Is that?
Not at all, absolutely.
But I think we need to get past the threshold question. And how do we do that? I'm going to suggest, allow me the temerity to suggest that the commission give us a vote on this proposal this evening so that we can get back in front of city council. I think that's the only way to skin this cat. And I say that with all due respect, but I think that's probably where we need to go. And we can come back, assuming we get a vote. We may not be back, but if we come back, then we can deal with all these issues and tap into and take advantage of all your expertise and your knowledge that you have of the development within these districts. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Well, it seems to me that, I think as a commission, we have to take the attitude that, either we're going to hold fast to, a certain number of stories. And, I think it's clear in our design guidelines, our district is predominantly 3-story buildings. I think the other way to look at this is, we have some newer non-contributing buildings across the street that are about, the proposed height of 80 feet or so. The applicant seems to be making some efforts to incorporate, the contributing building in their proposal. They've reduced some stories. It looks like, there are some benefits to this, to the proposal. There are still some problems, admittedly, and I agree with many of the comments. Right now, the proposal doesn't look very cohesive, but, again, I feel the applicant is willing to work with us on that. My inclination is that we should continue to work with the applicant. I'd appreciate at this point someone who can make a motion on this.
Before you do that, I just want to remind everybody that we are doing affordable housing and we're creating 55 jobs.
That's fine. As Jeffrey mentioned, there didn't seem to be any mention of affordable housing in this proposal.
That's still part of the project, yeah.
It is.
Okay, all right. And are you able to state at this point how much affordable housing?
10%.
Okay, and again, I need to reiterate what Ms. Starbuck would say when she was still part of this commission, in that, while we care about the economics of the project, we're driven by our design guidelines. But we appreciate hearing these things, and I think we all agree there's a lot of very positive things about the project.
Gary,
Respond to that? That was what I heard before. This is Kim again.
I'm sorry, Kim, but the public comment part has ended at this point, and we have a commission member who would.
Gary, Seth Cornish, I'd like to make a motion for this project.
Okay.
I'd like to make the motion that we deny the application, or deny a recommendation for a recommendation for certificate of appropriateness based on the height of the building. In lieu of the height being as what it would be, I would say if the building were 5 stories high, that it could be supported.
Okay,
That's my
so
motion.
okay, so in other words, if the applicant came back with a 5-story high building, you would be in support of it. But at this number of stories,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I recall hearing that City Council wanted from us. Was
okay.
They wanted to know if we were going to deny something, what it would take for us to approve it. So that is a motion I've put on the floor.
Great, thank you, Seth, and that seems like a very clear motion. Do we have anyone who's willing to second this?
Gary, I'll second that motion. This is Craig Evans.
Okay, thank you, Craig. So we will now put this to a vote. I will start.
I believe we're allowed to have a little bit more discussion. No.
Oh, thank you, Seth.
If we need to.
Okay, and you're absolutely right, and that's very typical. So I'm going to ask if anybody from our commission would like to, ask any questions about the motion on the table now, please do so.
Can I make a second motion, or do I have to wait till this one passes?
Yeah, I think,
Fails or
yeah,
whatever?
I think, first we have to put it to a vote,
Okay.
but if you have specific
I
questions.
just had a specific question. Is this a motion being just as clear as just that, as simple as Seth had made it, or are we breaking it up into individual parts like we have the whole time? Part 1, part 2, part 3.
I think it's okay to, add to the motion or make some suggestions.
Okay.
And in fact, I think I would like to add to the motion too, that, if this motion carries, I would like to see, if this motion doesn't carry, and either way, I would like to see the applicant come back with a more cohesive design to the facade and incorporating some of the comments you heard tonight. Any other questions or comments or discussion items?
I guess, let me just explain. My motion is because the main portion of this whole discussion is based on the height of the building.
Right.
The applicant just said that they might as well go to city council and see what city council chooses to do. This gives it a very clear indication of what we say as the Historic Commission. We are not going, we haven't granted a certificate of approval for a 5-story building. We've just said that if it were 5 stories, we would certainly, we could certainly tweak it if it's 5 stories and make it so that it would probably be historically appropriate.
Okay.
In other words, I'm not saying that we take the design the way it is, chop 4 stories off the top of it. I'm suggesting we recommend denying the certificate of appropriateness and giving city council some benefit of our thoughts in our motion, so that when they make their decision, because the applicant has already said they're going to go back to city council, no matter what we say here. Because we aren't going to approve it here. But we will then have given the council the benefit of our thought process for them to then make the ultimate decision.
Okay, thank you, Seth. All right, so we have a motion on the table, and we have a motion on the floor with a second. Let's take a roll call. Seth Cornish.
Aye.
Okay. Craig Evans.
Aye.
Roger Hudak.
Nay.
Okay. Mike Simonson.
Nay.
I vote nay as well. Okay, so that means the motion doesn't carry, and that means we need a new motion.
I'm also.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm also a nay.
Nay. Okay, so what we have, four nays?
Yes.
Okay, four nays and 3 ayes, right?
2 ayes.
2 ayes, okay.
Mr. Lausch is abstained.
Right, correct. Mr. Lausch is abstained. Okay. All right. Mike, why don't you take a try at this?
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion now. I'm gonna do a little different. I'm gonna break it up into the 3 parts like Jeffrey had earlier discussed. So for part 1, I make a motion to permit the demolition of the buildings, the non-contributing buildings at 319 South New, 325 South New, through 327 South New, and the saving of the facade of the contributing building at the Italianate facade at 321 to 323 South New Street. That's for part 1. Part 2, I make a motion to approve the building as submitted as it pertains to the size and scale of the building. And part 3 for the new construction, I think the developer and the architect do need to return to go over the details as far as I think there's many outstanding details that still need to be approved as far as the the brick, the color, the windows, the several items that I don't think can be tackled in one meeting tonight.
And we would agree on the record for what that's worth.
And that'd be the end of my motion.
Okay. Do we have anyone who wishes to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Chaz has seconded. And any discussion on this motion? Okay, let's put it to a vote then. Chaz, I wrote you in at the top of my list, so.
So, yay.
Okay. Seth Cornish?
Nay.
Okay. I vote aye. Craig Evans?
Nay.
Okay. Roger Hudak?
Aye.
Okay, Mike Simonson?
Aye.
There I was an I as an A,
Okay, all right.
not an
And,
A.
what
Carries
was that, 4-3? So it carries. Okay, so
4-2
motion,
with one abstention.
motion carries 4-2, one abstention. Okay, well, I think that's what you were looking for tonight.
Yes, thank you. It is, and thank you very much. We do appreciate it, and we're serious. We look forward to working with you. Hopefully we'll be back.
And we're likewise looking
Yes.
forward to working with you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention my computer went dead. I guess because of the GoTo, it just really swallowed it. So I switched to
Okay.
handwriting, which is okay, but the general public can hear me. They cannot see me.
Okay, okay. Is that all the agenda items for tonight, or?
Those are the agenda items, except for passing of the minute, accepting minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay. Can we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the previous meeting?
We'll make that motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
I can't.
I'll make
Yeah,
the.
those that weren't
You
there.
weren't there.
cannot.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you
And
can't.
I don't record names. I
No
just,
Right,
I'll make the motion then.
okay, thank you.
I'm just interested if there are any objections, and if so, what it would be.
Mhm.
No objections.
Okay,
All right, very good.
When it's appropriate, but
And new business.
okay,
new business.
all right.
Just have the elevation that Jeffrey Long looked at, that was prepared by Spillman Farmer in 1939.
Okay.
Showed all those windows to be steel cased.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're actually double hung.
They are,
windows.
okay.
So I can't locate the louver lined up with the center because there's only two. So if I could show you what I'm talking about.
Sure. I mean, I don't think this qualifies as new business.
Yeah, you know what, Lee, this definitely sounds like something you two could work out after
Yeah,
the
I mean, you
meeting.
can
We're
show it to me.
almost about to
We'll-
wrap
We'll
up.
catch it
Yeah.
together, just so that I know what we're talking about.
Okay.
And if I'm allowed to give you a call. then-
Sure.
But are there any other new business items?
In reality.
Yeah. Gary,
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
Gary,
This window.
one other item has to do with the building next to Mike's Auto Glass. It looks like it's where the scaffold had been up for about 2 years.
Yes,
The windows are open, the brick needs pointing, the building looks like it's set for demolition by neglect. This is one more instance where we need to pay attention.
You're saying like.
I will take a look at that one tomorrow. I'm familiar with that one. That's on Broadhead there.
See it.
Yes.
See if I
Okay.
can-
Perfect.
okay, thank you.
And the one other thing is the trash corral beside Dunkin' Donuts on Broadway.
Thank you for
And what do I
clarifying.
do?
That's one of the most atrocious things that we have gone for us, and we've got a historic building across the street.
Did they once come before us for guidance on that corral?
I should have
That's
known.
okay.
I knew it. Should have brought it up.
No problem.
Craig, can you still hear me? Thank you. Anyway, Craig, you still there?
Yes,
Oh, okay. That Dunkin' Donuts location, that came before us one time, didn't it?
it did.
Okay. All right.
And
So I guess
it's been in process for a long time.
yeah.
It
Okay.
hasn't changed. It still looks ugly.
Did you get an approval for anything in the past?
I think we might have issued, I think they came before us for some kind of enclosure. I think they got a COA and maybe they just never went through with the work. I don't know what happened.
I'll take a look. That makes my job a little easier.
All right, and I guess the only other new business item I could think of is just wishing a hearty welcome to Chaz Patrick, and thank you for joining our commission.
Thank you for having me.
And you can see how much fun we've had.
Yes, party.
That's right. So anyway, I just want to thank everyone out there tonight, and it's a very challenging submission, and I'm sure there's more like that along the way. To me, one of the main things in all this is I feel like we need to keep ourselves involved and engaged and leading the process. So I think to me, this was an important way that, we could at least help this applicant make this building more fitting for our district. So that's just my thoughts on it. I know not everybody's happy with what was decided, but, I'll just offer that.
I agree.
Okay, signing off.
All right, everybody.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much.